Welcome guys, Eric Roberts. Today we're talking about Intro to EQ, and I'm going to be showing you a lot about just the beginning of the thought process of EQ and what it's like to really think about EQ and how we're going to use it. And so check this out. I have this little thing here. It's called a instrument frequency chart, and I was doing some research as I was preparing for these lessons, and some people say it's crazy, and I've only ever used these charts really just to see the bigger picture. I'm not really going in and saying, where's the snare drum here and there? And I'm going to put links to all of this, to this chart, and also to a couple articles here that I want you to look at that gives an overview of this. But basically, I want to talk about the frequency spectrum, and I think this does do a good job of showing the frequency spectrum. So I'm going to turn my face off for you so you can kind of see what this is about. And you basically have sub-bass, the bass, the low mids, the mid mids, the high mids, and the high frequencies, and it just kind of gives you a really good idea of what it is. Now, I'm also a piano technician, certified piano technician, so I think of it, I like this idea of having the piano here. A440 is right here in the middle, and sort of where it is in the piano. If you go to a piano, you can see the piano has sort of all of the frequency ranges. Like a pipe organ, it goes from all the way down here in the sub bass all the way up. And this chart basically will just show you, the voice goes from around 100 hertz up to, way up here, 10,000, 10K. The piano can span a really big, wide thing. But if you look up here, like the guitar can span a little, the bass is really down here. I think if you look in this chart, you can see the bass is, and these little colors are like, this is mostly where it is down here, and the bass is down here. And then like a flute would be up here, like up high. We don't have these in our worship band, so it doesn't really matter too much, but like cymbals are around here, the snare is down here, and you can kind of just get a feel for what it is. But really you want to think that anything really below 50 hertz, we don't really hear way down here in the sub bass. We really feel this sub bass, and then we start hearing around 50 or maybe right around here we start hearing some stuff, and then we really don't hear much above up here in the 20K either. Most people are in this range, so we hear a lot in this mid-range, and we feel and sense a lot in the low range. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about EQ, and I'm going to show you how to tweak EQ and how to change EQ and all that as we get into Logic sessions. But just in general, thinking about where things happen. In a vocal, you might hear in the 2K range, you might have some clarity, and you get a little sizzle on the cymbals up in the 5K. You get really brightness up in here, and I really like to think in terms of muddiness and brightness and different things like that. So I'm kind of always thinking about that, kind of like honkiness, kind of learn some words and be able to describe what it feels like, what it sounds like. It sounds muddy. That's probably down here in the 100 hertz, 200 hertz. If it sounds like honky, it might be in the 500. If it sounds too bright or harsh, it's probably in the 2K, 5K. If it's just hurting your ears. So there's some of those things that are just general. I do like to really kind of look at this in general and think about where those frequencies are. But then I'll take you to this EQ cheat sheet here, and I'll have a link to this as well. This is a pretty good little article. It talks about the bass guitar, that the bottom is in the 50 to 80 hertz, the attack's around 700 hertz, and the snap is in the 2.5K. So this is really good. This is a really good version of this as well. This is a really nice chart because you can kind of just study some of the numbers, like, okay, the bottom of the snare is in the 50, the hollowness is in 400, and then the real high smack attack, the beater attacks in the 3 to 5K. So you can sort of start thinking in terms of the frequency where it is. Let's see, electric guitar, 80 hertz and below, it's muddy. The presence is in the 1 to 2.5, you'll see that. The brilliance is way up there. Same thing with guitar, organ, piano, horns, vocals. And the vocals is one you'll really be focusing on a lot. So you just want to listen to the different voices and different mics and notice where the fullness of the sound is at this way, is at this place, and then the sibilance or the brightness or the airiness, the sibilance, maybe more like how you can feel and hear what they're saying. But a good thing to think about, then this EQ cheat sheet, this guy showed a bunch of different cheat sheets and he kind of ripped on them a little bit. And I get that. I get what he's saying. But the idea is that it's good to visualize what we're talking about in terms of EQ. So I'm going to put these links in this description. I'll even probably download this one for you because you can look at this and see that if you're listening to a vocal or if you're listening to a piano, one of the things about EQ is we're going to take away, we're going to cut, and we're going to boost, and we're going to have frequency. So those are the things we're going to talk about. The frequency is really the number where it is, 200 hertz, 500 hertz, low mids, mid mids. This is good to know right here. I really like this bottom chart. It just gives you an idea where you're at. And then as we listen to things, we're going to be boosting or putting back the frequencies that are missing, or the things that are too much, we're going to be cutting, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to be cutting and boosting, and that's like when you see an EQ in your car, you can kind of like turn down the bass or turn up the bass, and you know we're going to get into a lot more about that, but think of it in terms of a piano a little bit, and you can kind of see the middle of the piano, the high of the piano, the low of the piano, and you can hear the ranges. That's why I really like the piano in terms of an instrument, to just really understand the fullness of the spectrum. If you go play a piano and really pound on the keys up high, and you get that really bright sound, and pound on the low keys, you get that really big full sound. Later in these lessons, we're going to talk about how these frequencies make us feel and how they make our ears feel. And some of the things that I'll be talking about is, if you don't have enough bass, in the mix, then people will sense that it's too bright. The whole thing's too bright. So just because it's too bright doesn't mean that you might want to turn down the brightness. It might mean that you need to turn up the bass. So think of this as a EQ as a sort of a round spectrum that we want to be in the middle of. And if there's too much bass, then we're going to feel like it's just overwhelmingly low, and we're not going to hear any clarity. And if there's too much clarity and not enough bass, we're going to feel like there's not enough bottom. So you're mixing that. And also, as we go through this, we'll be mixing each individual instrument with itself and with everybody else. So it gets a little more complicated as you try to carve out little places to bring an instrument in and not let instruments stomp all over each other. You notice here, the voice and the bass guitar and the acoustic guitar, they all kind of create this train wreck right here in the middle. So you'll want to also let everybody have a place in the mix. So that is just the beginning of EQ. Make sure you download this, look at it, read a couple of these charts and articles. It's really great because we're going to get into, in the next few lessons, listening to some of the vocals and really learning how to use what we would call the parametric EQ here. All right, guys, go to the next video when you're ready.